Everybody, welcome. Welcome to Breaking Work. This is that dedicated space where we break down the default view we all have of work and we reimagine and redesign what it could be for us. To do that, I like to bring in guests who have carved their own paths, taken control of their work lives, and now make a living on their own terms. So if you're looking to make a quick buck or lay on the beach somewhere, this really is not the place for you. But if you had a feeling that, is this all there is? And you maybe been dreaming of becoming the best version of yourself through your work, then you've reached the right place. If you don't know me and you're new to this, welcome. I'm Michael Garden. I coach corporate pros on how to break that feeling of corporate dependence and help them build self-directed futures where they control and they build something that they truly care about. So I'll spare you the details of my own breaking work journey, but I'd love if you connected with me on LinkedIn, drop me a DM, just said hi. My guest today is the remarkable Sigute Zitikyte. If you don't know Sigute, you should, and you will right here. But Sigute is a certified business coach and personal brand consultant and the author of Multi-Passionate. I've got the book right here, actually.
Yes.
She was kind enough to send it to me. She writes an online column that helps ambitious professionals find their voice, build a career off the beaten path, and finally embrace their multi-passionate selves. Sigute has worked with world-class companies, including Shopify and Mindvalley. During this time, she started a consulting side hustle that quickly turned to full-time and allowed her to retire from corporate. Sigute has consulted for hundreds of online business owners and helped launch and grow multiple seven-figure businesses, including Dharma Coaching Institute and Mindvalley Coach, as well as numerous creative projects for visionaries, including best-selling books and podcasts in the personal transformation space. Sigute, thank you so much for being here, my friend.
Michael, it's so great to be here. And hello to everyone who's joined us, who's live, who's watching this, wherever you're watching this. This is, one of my favorite soul conversations to have. And I love your shirt. Fuck it, I'm going
Thank you.
solo, but solo. That's what we're here to do.
Yeah, so we're getting some positive comments. People are hearing it. Everything looks like it's going good. I'm working on a little bit of merch. I'm trying to feel the flow of how do we sort of take some things to more the brand level, and maybe I can get some wisdom from you. But I'm big into wolves and the lone wolf, and then forget about it. Let's just go do it. Let's go solo. So debuting a little bit of that, seeing how the message resonates, but really excited to dig in here today with you because I am a multi-passionate. So many people that are going to listen to this are multi-passionates, and we have a really interesting set of problems, things that we deal with and grapple with. And so for the audience, if you feel like you're a multi-passionate, throw us some questions and comments and we'll get to them and Sigute will answer them. But, I found your work on LinkedIn about a year ago, just deeply resonated with me because I think I was using terms like multi-potentiality at one point and this idea of a career portfolio, not that linear path. And so listening to you and reading some of your stuff just hit me to my core. So let's start with, in your view, what is a multi-passionate?
Good question. And I always leave it open to be so many different things.
Yeah.
But I can, from a career lens, right? Like when I was late teens, early 20s, when you're in school, you're juggling, maybe a restaurant side hustle job, you're doing this. I've always had multiple jobs and I've always just loved it, thrived in it, done it. And thank God, in my mid-20s, I moved to Mindvalley. I started working with entrepreneurs. I started to see these amazing thought leaders who were multi-passionate, who were rewarded for it, who were pivoting and reinventing. Because I think after you're 25, it's like not cute anymore to do more than one thing, right? Then you're
Yeah.
like a liability to everyone around you for not figuring it out. Why don't you know what you're doing? And so I always say, having seen that other way of building a career, that different way of just believing in yourself, reinventing, I needed a term for it. And that was the term of multi-passionate, is I don't ever have to be stuck in one identity of myself in career, but also one identity of myself in life. I think maybe even, I'm sure this is for men too. I know for women, you sometimes have to choose like one or the other of what kind of person are you? Are you the stay at home? Or are you the career woman? Like there's no middle ground of who you want to be in the middle. And so that's why I'm like, it's so multi-layered of what that word can mean to you, of just being your full self and expanding into that full self. And I know that's scary to do it right off the bat, like, hey, just be authentic and just be your full self and just, all those things you're insecure about or uncomfortable about, or you've never seen anyone do it. Why don't you just go do it tomorrow? And so it's a process, and that's where I kind of use personal branding to help with that, which we can dive into as well. But that's really what multi-passionate means to me.
Yeah. And I think so many people can resonate with that because, on the one hand, we are all individuals and we all have our own unique interests, skill sets, experiences. Um, so we all look at ourselves as a little bit more, but yeah, like the systems set up, especially around career in society, are like pick a lane and build your identity as something, right? And I feel like, for me at least, I always felt like this kind of corporate misfit because I was like, okay, I can do this thing and it's cool and maybe I'm good at it. Um, but I also like this thing and that thing. And it just became so difficult to like operate authentically in an environment where I was sort of expected to be taking care of like sort of one lane. And so I always remember like my resume used to give me just the biggest fits. It made me so self-conscious. I would look at it and I would be like, what I had, the words on my page don't make sense to anybody. If were to talk to them, I can put it all together in a narrative, but it just brought me so much shame because I was like, there's so much out here that I want to figure out and do. And so it just held me back for the longest time. You kind of say, getting into that, you kind of say like that you spent the first 10 years of your career in the multi-passionate shame cycle. So like, what were some of those experiences and what led you to sort of really lean into this idea of multi-passion and sort of embrace that?
I mean, you're so right. I went to business school, which again was an interesting choice for me because I remember going through the pamphlet being like, well, I don't want to be a lawyer. I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to be these things. What's something that's safe that will kind of allow me to pursue whatever I want to pursue? I went into business and then I stepped into finance. And I think that's where I went there because I loved what I thought it would be. But then I realized, reading the paper every morning, seeing what's happening in the markets, I thought, wait, actually, that's not my personality of wanting this. And so just kind of pivoting out of that a little bit, there's so much self-judgment of it for yourself when you're like, oh, I'm interested in this other thing, but my day job is this. I should not tell anybody. And I hid it for so long. And I had these like split personalities for a long time
Yeah.
where at work, it was just like, let's talk about finance. Then, like, secretly on the weekends, when I would go to an entrepreneurial or real estate seminar, like, I would not ever tell anyone about that. Like, truly, I would, you know, not tell anyone that I was going to these events because it just felt so out of, I don't know, out of character of the identity that I had. And so I was just living these like separate lives, which just felt like I felt happy in it because I was eh, allowing different parts of myself to come alive and express themselves. But it was so much like mental work to be like, who am I, where, and who do I talk to about what? And then I can't bring together even different friends who I have different interests with. You have to think about, okay, well, this is the person I love to talk about health and fitness with, but then this is the person I like to go out with at night. And God forbid I bring them together. And so maybe it was even like, I think there's a string of people pleasing as well for those of us who are multi-passionates who just like are afraid to bring together all parts of ourselves because we don't want to be the odd one out in any kind of way. And so that was the shame cycle of wanting something, but then really second guessing myself or doubting it or not being fully into it. And then I don't know when it clicked, but I said, screw it. I'm speaking online. I'm sharing my full self. I think branding was my lifeline of having those, I call them like philosophical ways of talking about what you're doing, right? It's not just the craft, it's also what's your unique lens of the craft, or how did you get into it, or what's your experience that gives you this perspective on this one thing, right? And so a lot of my content from the early days was just so much more holistic. And that kind of opened up a portal for me of, oh, I'm starting to see the reason that I liked finance is why I liked real estate, is why I liked spirituality, is why I liked tech. Like all these things started to come together. And that was kind of my, I think, path out of it. And now I'm just the proudest multi-passionate on the planet. No shame cycle, just reinvention cycle all the way.
That's awesome. And I'm assuming you have the mindset, at least given your experience, that it's likely to change in the future as well. Like the
100%.
proverbial it. Is that right?
100%. Yeah. I always say it's living a life from your curiosity, from your reinvention. And this is where I say, like, you need a safety net for that, right? I think one of the things that I realized was when I left Mind Valley, which was based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and I moved back home to Canada to work at Shopify, something that really clicked for me in that moment was, oh, interesting, my entire network and brand stayed there and it didn't come to me. And I was like, I'm coming with a director title, with running these amazing partnerships at Mind Valley. And it's like the person who looked at my resume when they hired me saw that, but I had to rebuild this like internal brand from scratch. And I think at that point, knowing that, well, probably every 3 to 4 years, I'm going to expand in some way and grow and shift, maybe even shift teams, departments, companies. I thought, okay, I'm just going to have to like rebuild my authority, rebuild my brand. I feel like there's a way to have a continuation from it. And having worked with a lot of thought leaders, back at Mind Valley, I would see how they would do that in the entrepreneurial landscape, right? They had their website, they had their brand, they had everything. As a pivot was coming, they would start planting little Easter eggs or little seeds for the next thing as they were in the current thing. And then it would just be this like beautiful gradual transformation into their next project or initiative. And I thought, okay, well, I think we can do this in the corporate world as well. And that's when the rigidity of the walls of corporate, the boxes, that this is the role you're in. So if you're in this job, don't be thinking about something else. That's where it started to become really, really obvious for me. And that's when I really had this hypothesis of how can we bring that entrepreneurial way of building a career to the corporate world and trying to fit that puzzle in.
So I'm assuming with what you're saying that there were like in those pivots, and again, we're getting maybe a little ahead of ourselves, but that's fine. I want to pull on this thread anyway. There were kind of seeds of an underlying thread that connected those pivots that were able to be used. Like it wasn't necessarily that you had to pivot everything. And the why I'm asking this is because a lot of people have fear about any type of change, career change, because they think they're giving up like 100% one identity or all of the knowledge and skills and accolades that they built in that. And they have to completely reinvent something new going to the next one. And that's part of the fear. But I'm assuming that getting to the why and getting to the thread that connects things was part of, makes that transition a little bit easier. Is that right or wrong?
So I've been thinking about something very recently, like in the past few weeks, playing around with this idea that the longer you wait and quote unquote overstay a situation you've outgrown from, the more you're going to swing the pendulum completely the other way. And then, so imagine you're this like hustle, tech grind in your masculine, like grinding away, money, money, money. If you overstay that way further than like your heart and your soul wants to be in it, you're going to swing that pendulum to like, I'm a fairy, Bali, like health, whatever soft life era. And then you're not going to like that. And then you're going to find yourself at a certain point in the middle going, oh, okay, so here's what I liked from the tech side. Here's what I like from the spiritual side. Now let me build something and now it makes sense. If you don't overstay too long, then you don't have that huge pendulum swing, right? You're not stretching it out more and more and more. And so for me, I think the good thing is I never overstayed. I read this quote by John D. Rockefeller, early 20s, that said, don't be afraid to give up the good to go for the great. So don't be afraid to give up the good to go for the great. Because what happens? Anytime you're somewhere good, it's a good job. I like it. It's a good job. I'm happy. But I feel like I want something great. And what does everyone tell you? Be grateful
Just
for
be
what you
happy.
have.
Yeah.
Just be happy. What are you complaining about? You have this, and that. Why would you blow everything up for something else? And so we overstay and we overstay and we overstay. But if in that moment you're like, you know what? I deserve great, not good, and you do something about it, then it's just like an inch pivot. And this is where most of my clients come to me, is in this little pivot. And it's funny because they come to me and they're like, all right, I'm doing a 180. This is not going to make sense. Brace yourself. And I'm like, your pivot sounds the same as what you're doing now. Can you explain to me what I'm supposed to be shocked about? And so I think sometimes we create in our head how extreme it is.
Yeah.
And from the outside world, we don't realize that people are like, yeah, I always knew you're into fitness. Like, obviously you were going to go into that. Like, I was waiting for you to do it. And so it can go either way depending how long you've kind of stretched it out. But for most people, I would say if you're listening to this, it's your pivot is probably not as extreme as you're making it out to be. There's always like a connective thread and tissue to pull it back together. And I think that's the beauty of what branding does. It gives you back your narrative. You're able to explain how these two connect, why they make sense, and how they're actually a skill stack, not
Mm.
a complete reinvention from ground zero.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's a really good observation. It's what I've seen too. I think in my own journey, I would say I went from like very type A, hustle, work hard, sacrifice, to, almost borderline lazy at times because I was, burnt out and I didn't like that version of myself. And as time went on, okay, you start to realize, okay, I got to turn it on in some aspects. But so that's a really interesting observation. And the branding piece of like connecting those dots and those through lines is really interesting too, because we're always coaching our clients to look at your past experience, like figure out what the foundation of you is, not necessarily all of the things that you did and accomplishments, or you even may be good at certain things that you don't even want to do, but like if you understand the foundation and the motivation, then you can use those in a different way. And a lot of those are sort of like the meta skills or the very transferable skills and parts of you that are unique that you can bring into that next chapter. And so that sort of starts to bridge the gap of how big this leap actually is. No, geez, yeah, I stood up this type of organization over here. Why can't I just go do it over there? So I'm curious, you described a bunch of different experiences. You had Mind Valley, working with entrepreneurs, Shopify, or was it Spotify? I'm sorry.
Shopify.
Shopify. I always get the two confused. Shopify is in Canada. Yeah. What was some of your through line? You were kind of talking about, how the reasons and the motivations, what I liked in tech and finance was also similar. What was that for you?
Yeah. For me, it was always an obsession of the future of work and where it's going and what
Mm.
that looks like. That is something that I didn't have the words for, but I have the words for now. That's something like I was always playing career chess, always thinking about what's happening, right? Even if we look at right now with AI, right? I was just listening to Tim Ferriss' podcast episode yesterday, and he had a guest on, and they were saying, would you send your kid to coding school today? They said no. Would you send them to law school? No. And they're like, all of these very, very specific skill sets, they're reducing in, there's just less jobs for it, right? Because AI can do so much of it. And I was just sitting there thinking, somehow my intuition had this feeling over 5 years ago of there's something about like not niching in hardcore into a very, very specific skill set for me, right? Everyone can do whatever they want, but I'm saying there's something in my intuition going, that's not where like the puck is going. Canadian reference, Wayne Gretzky, right? Follow where
I
the
got it.
puck's going, not where it is. And there's just something about me, like just the mind mapping of how the world is moving around, how things are shifting, and just kind of seeing where the puck's going and then building a career for that and building those skill sets, right? Like I was learning how to build an online business when I would come home and my family would have no idea what I'm doing at Mind Valley. Like they probably thought it was a scam. I'm like, no, there's webinars and there's funnels and there's, split testing. And it just that language was not there a decade ago, right? But there is something about that. So I see myself as somebody who really just has an understanding of where the future of work is going. And so I'll adapt things to it. And I think that's where I really just found branding to be the thing that could give me stability in these shifts and pivots and movements. Because we can talk about that too, right? It's very hard to try something new when you're dependent and you need money. Like I acknowledge that through and through. Like I am not that person that's like, all right, we're ripping the band-aid and we're quitting everything and we're trying something new tomorrow. That's way too much like nervous system, dysregulation for me. I need to ease into things. But I would say that would be one through line for me for sure, is always wanting a career where I can like grow, explore, find white spaces, find new things. And I was always searching for that in the different industries that I was going to. And then each one, I just went into it and I would pick up skills and I would take them with me. So even I'll just jump back to while I was in finance, I side hustled into entrepreneurship. And at the time, I just wanted to flip properties, right? It was like right after 2008, a couple years, I was like, I just want to buy property in Chicago and flip it and like try it out. But in that process, I remember we were coached to, okay, well, build your website, incorporate your business, like do all these things that made no sense for me at the time. But just doing that, I go, oh my God, okay, I packed that little skill in my backpack that I can now use where I am today with, service providers. So that's what I did actually at Shopify. I was building partnerships and working with designers, developers, agencies, all of them to, you guessed it, again, at the time, I didn't consciously know I was doing this. I was like a business growth coach, but I was coaching them on finding that their niche in that industry, which I know we're allergic to niche over here, but helping them really hone into what they were doing and build their brands. And only in hindsight, I'm like, oh, I didn't have the words for what I was doing, but that's what was happening. And so it can feel a little bit like unplanned and unstructured. And I think that's how it should be, where you follow that intuitive pull to where you want to go. And then you trust that your future self is going to make the most of all the skills that you've accumulated, because you're meant to accumulate them for a reason, right? So that's kind of that's the journey there.
So we're going to get into branding, because I have selfish questions on the topic, but I think it's also going to be really helpful for the audience to get into that. But I have a few more questions on the overall journey that you've been on. So did you have any tools or processes that helped you figure this out? So you've talked about intuition leading and the pendulum swinging, and how did you kind of, I guess, come to the conclusion that you sort of found this intersection of all of these different things within branding?
I would say reading self-help or personal development books, whatever you want to call them. I was reading those while still, I would say, late high school. And those really, really helped me. So anything, Tony Robbins, or even watching Oprah all the time. And just, I remember even like I have moments of like, have you followed James Altucher?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
From
legend.
like the very beginning. I knew
Okay.
him of his writing at CNBC and when he was really in finance, like back in the day. And yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So he, again, finance background. That's kind of where I found him. And then he really started to like create content that was more about choose yourself. And,
yeah,
he would talk about idea sex,
yes,
take all these different things, merge them together. And I just have so many memories of just having that, just always listening to his, I don't even remember if it podcasts. I think he had a podcast back
he
then.
did.
He
He
was
still
totally an
does, I
OG.
think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I love him. Oh my God, I love the guy. So just people like that who were multi-passionates themselves, who took the time and the love for others to like share their wisdom online. I just live for it. And that's actually why I ended up going to Mind Valley, because the position was director of partnerships. I could pull these amazing people that I love, bring them to the platform and help build their presence online. Right? That's why I
yeah.
got into it. I followed that passion. And yeah, so I think that's where my love of branding comes through, is just seeing how much it helped me for the successful people who took the time, who didn't need to, but they showed up to give back and to share what they've learned to help kind of the people two steps behind them. And I think that's like the greatest just expression of your love and your soul for others in the world.
So I love that you brought up James James Altucher, because I have a little bit of an aside, but I think it's very relevant. So I was following him forever, as I'm trying to figure out, yeah, who the hell am I and what am I good at, and understanding a little bit about my brain going horizontal. I love to see connections between things, and didn't know where that all fit because the world's organized in lanes, and I'm like looking across lanes, and the idea of idea sex.
Yeah.
Like I still talk about that today with people, because it was just like, oh my God, that's actually what I'm kind of good at and like doing.
Yes.
And it was sort of that moment of like permission, like, oh my God, like, you mean I can try to like figure out how to use that as a skill. And then, paying attention to venture capital and others, the startup ecosystems that we're building around that time as well. And hearing people talk about innovation as nothing really new. It's most of the time it's connecting, two ideas. And the classic example is like wheels on luggage. I mean, that was like the wheel was invented when it was invented. Luggage has been around forever, but nobody put it together until like, I don't know, what was it, like 1985 or something like that. So this idea of like all of these things going on in the world, everybody's paying attention in lanes, but if you can figure out how to look across things, find connections, and think a little bit differently, like there's actually a place for you in the world. And so as a multi passionate, I was like, okay, maybe I'm not such a misfit. I just need to find the right spot. And that was
Yes.
super helpful for me. So I love that guy.
Oh my God, I'm so happy. You're my people. I knew it already. Now it's just confirmed. But also just to come back to the niche conversation, this is where like my perspective is so different, because I'm like, if you have idea sex, you're gonna have like a category of one niche,
Right.
let's call it. Like you are gonna be more unique than the person's like, well, I niche down to this trade or this skill for this age person to this blah blah blah. Like, okay, that market is already built for you. So it's easier for me to like, oh, I'm going to be this, plop into it. And cool, you have a niche. You feel safe. You found one overnight. Good for you. But when you're doing idea sex, it takes a lot more time to really unpack what are these different things I'm into. And there's no market for it. So
Right.
I always say, when you're about to like strike gold with a niche, you are going to feel, you're going to go to bed and you're going to think, I'm either the biggest idiot on the planet or I'm the biggest genius. And that's what geniuses are. They're just idiots who like made it work,
Keep going.
who just
Just
keep
keep
going.
going. Yeah.
And that's the vulnerability and the risk that I really empathize that people have difficulty on, is when you're multi-passionate, you're bringing together things like I was saying at the beginning of this call, especially if you're a people pleaser or any kind of tendency or need that external validation. It's going to look freaking weird to people, and you're just going to have to swing with it and go for it. And just in my own experience, like I have, whenever I'm doing something that I feel like my intuition is bringing me to, I have these vivid memories of it. So even now I can remember myself sitting at the offices at Shopify thinking, okay, nobody around me in this company is showing up on LinkedIn or building a brand. They're just building their internal reputation. They're just working hard. And I'm like, I have these other friends back from my entrepreneurial world where they're out there creating content, they're showing up. And it was this like, can I bring branding and
Mm-hmm.
marketing to professionals? And it just felt so crazy. And I thought, could I just walk out of this office and like tell somebody to like build a brand? And like they would probably look at me like I was psychotic,
Yeah.
right? Like it just was not the thing. I don't think people recognize how much personal branding on LinkedIn for corporate and professionals has blown up in the past like
Oh,
2, 3 years, maybe max,
massive.
right? Blown up. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, are you kidding me? Like you were just posting up, hey, congrats, I just joined. So I say that A, for anybody who is stepping into online and LinkedIn, just know that this is so new, like so new. You have probably 30, 40 years of conditioning that as a professional, you should not be using your voice. You should shut up and stay quiet and keep your job. So that's like the biggest thing. But secondly, like it's such an opportunity for us to like bring these two worlds together. And now corporate professionals can become entrepreneurs. And it's like you're smarter than just having one paycheck. That's something that I truly believe. And, you know, the more I think about it, I'm like, can you imagine you were in a relationship and your spouse didn't let you go out and have friends? I'm like,
Right.
that is considered toxic and narcissism. Okay, so why are we doing that in corporate of you're not allowed to do anything else but work for us? And so yeah, I can get heated on that perspective. It's not always that malicious. It's just sometimes, conditioning in us, but I really do like everyone who's listening, just think about what, if I said go right now on LinkedIn and start posting, what immediate fears come up from you? Because I can
Yeah.
probably guarantee you, which is what I had, which is, oh my God, my boss will see this. And
Yeah.
what will they think? They're going to think I'm quitting tomorrow and that I'm not motivated and I'm not committed and all of these things. So we've got a lot of stuff in the brain to work through.
Yeah. So we keep teasing the branding element, and I'm sorry, folks. I'm gonna keep teasing it so you all listen. Keep listening to this. We're gonna get there, I promise. But you opened up a thread here about the one paycheck issue, and so you talk a lot about building this idea of a portfolio career. So talk to us a little bit about what that means, and especially in relationship to us multi-potentialites.
Yeah. So I always think about it this way. It's the best way to explain it. You have the craft, the thing that you're good at, and then you have the container, the current career that you have. And I think what we forget is that you can have more than one container in which you hold your craft. So your corporate job is one container for your craft. But then a coaching business is another container that can hold your craft. And then a consulting business is another container that can hold your craft. And on, right? And then the podcasts, the workshops, the whatever it is. There's unlimited containers online and you can actually create your own containers if you want as well. And I think that's where people get tripped up is I can even share like a good friend of mine. I recently coached her through this because she was working in sales. She was working in there for 10 or 15 years and she stepped out to build her coaching business, right? She was called to really, instead of being in there closing deals, she really wanted to help others. And she was having this existential crisis of, oh my God, I'm swinging from one to the other. And I was like, girl, you're doing the same thing, just in a different container. And then
Yeah.
she started spiraling. Oh my God, I don't have 10,000 hours as a coach. I'm not a good coach. And I had to again say, you have 10,000 hours as a salesperson. And that's literally what you're doing. And so it finally clicked to her when I used that metaphor of you have the same craft. It's still you. It's still your brain. It's still your skill set. It's just in a different container. And that's where when you see it that way, you think, oh, why am I just pouring my ambition into one container? Like I can pour it also into a different container. And that's really what a portfolio career to me is like create that container mix for you. And for some people, it could be two things. For others, it could be five, whatever that looks like. And you can alternate. You could be like, okay, I think the conditioning of you have to go all in order for it to be like real or for you to be successful. We have to rethink how we look at that because going all in can be with three containers and the culmination of those could be all in, right? And so even if you're
Yeah.
building a coaching business, you don't need to be like, well, I'm a 10K a month coach and now I'm successful. I say you could just have one client a month and that fills that need for you to like mentor someone and help them. And that'll give you that'll cover your bills for the month. And then that's all you want. And now you're just going to spend the rest of your time doing something else. Like we can just be really creative of, oh, new container, I'll try this. No, over this container, I'll try something else. How does that
Yeah.
land for you?
Yeah, no, totally get it. And what's interesting, a couple things come up. I mean, trying things and going all in, right? If what's if when you allow yourself to, when you don't put that pressure on that, I want to start a podcast, so I have to be all in. Um, the idea of idea sex comes back into play when you allow yourself to dabble, because like I wanted to get out of corporate. I built a business to help me do that. I like the idea of podcasting, having one-on-one conversations. I didn't know exactly what that would all be. If I would have said, I want to start a podcast and it has to be a business and make money, I wouldn't be at however many episodes I have. I just wanted to do it. And then because I've done it, it's not necessarily become a profit center, but it is marketing. It's lead
Mm-hmm.
gen. It's opening up conversations in a space where we can all talk about creating a different relationship with work. It's building collisions with people like you and other entrepreneurs, and it's networking for me and learning from authors because I want to write a book. And so the permutations and the optionality that come from just taking chances and just trying things, we're so programmed to be efficient all the time with our time. And from studying great investors, from venture capitalists to money, hedge fund managers, like they're always testing the waters. They're putting
Mm-hmm.
little feelers out there, and they're okay losing a small amount of money. Like that's not quote unquote efficient, but when they get the signal and the market starts moving their way and they start doubling and tripling down and they hit a home run that pays for the entire fund, like that's how they operate. And so if you can start to think about leaning into some of these things as giving yourself optionality, giving yourself some chances and learning through action, then the world kind of opens up and you can start to see how okay, maybe that can't be a business necessarily, or I don't love it as so much for it to be a business, but I can still use it in some way through marketing, through branding, through some other elements. That's where like people's minds get blown, I think, because they're so used to picking a lane, doing a sequential, series of activities. And the beauty also is you can stop at any time. You
Yeah.
can say, you know what? I don't like this anymore. I give myself permission to stop. And that's all good because you've learned something more about yourself. So I love that whole idea.
Yeah, dipping your toe. And, you know, fundamentally, the way that we are, if, we can't just read a book about riding a bicycle. We have to get on there and then fall off and then decide if we like that or not. And you only learn by dipping your toes. And so I think what happens is a lot of folks, they'll dip their toe once or twice and then they go, okay, well, everyone thinks I'm all over the place and I'm unfocused and I'm doing all these things. And I'm like, you're forgetting that you're in the experimentation and the build zone, right? To be honest, and this is another thing that I'm really passionate about is all the books that are written by people already at the end of their career, right? Because we have created a culture where you have to have made bajillions of dollars and built this amazing company before you're allowed to write a book about it and tell us about it. So guess what happens? We're just hearing the one single narrative of version of life. And the other problem is the way that that person at that level is operating and living their life is not how you are when you're starting out.
Right.
So if you don't even, so if you're in corporate and you kind of have a seed of an idea of what you want to do, the advice from someone who's like, cut everything out, go all in, just like, no, you're not there yet. They've had their decades or their years of experimenting with ideas, 5 different, 10 different ideas that didn't work until they landed on one, like an investor, and then they went all in. So I always say, like, do not forget that you're in the build phase, you're not in the scale phase yet.
Yeah.
Don't be unscalable. I always say, like, do the unscalable
Yes.
until it's thriving so much that you have no choice but to make it efficient and to scale it. And this is coming from like a project manager, business manager mind. I always have to say that, like, be scrappy, be messy, be unscalable. That's where, like, the creativity is in the chaos, the magic is in the mess, whatever you want to call it. Don't scale too fast, my friend.
I love that. I wrote a post the other day about the words that I've banned my kids from saying, and two of them are efficiency and optimization, because I totally agree with that. Like, you have to try a bunch of different things, and then the optimization comes in when you know in your gut, like, I'm going this way and I've got these advantages to do it. Now you can start to, really optimize that. But for us multi-potential or multi-passion, it's like, we got to try some things, and it takes time to see the interconnections and all of that. So I love that. The other piece that came to mind was the idea of labels. So when we see all of this content and we read these books and it's the finished product, we start to say at the beginning phase, what your friend said. I don't have the 10,000 hours. I don't have whatever certification, all of those types of things. And I tell people all the time, like, that doesn't matter. I am not a certified coach on purpose because I don't want to think like a certified coach. I don't want to be in that label. I don't have a teaching degree, yet I teach college level entrepreneurship. Like, these things can happen when you care about them and when you put the work in to be credible and authentic. You don't have to have these things. These are just excuses. So I like that frame of mind as well, because yeah, we're just at different phases. You're at the start, they're at the beginning, and they are distilling everything that worked for them and cutting out a whole lot of the messy middle piece of it.
Yeah. And that's why we also need more people sharing each step of the journey,
Yeah.
right? It's almost like,
In real time. Yep.
yeah, it's almost like somebody who has an 18-year-old and they're giving parenting advice and somebody just gave birth and they're like, okay, so give them a curfew. Like, no, that's not how it's going to work. Like, each phase needs its help. And so I think for we're good at the new sort of, and then the at the end, but that kind of middle, because it can go in many different ways, we don't really speak to that nuance of it. And as more people share, that's why I say, wherever you are in your journey today, there's someone 2 steps behind who wants to get where you are today. So you
Yeah.
need to share it. And so that's why I'm really like, I'm allergic and I really dislike any kind of content on LinkedIn where it's like, well, you should listen to me because I've achieved this amazing big thing. And it's
Yeah.
like, cool for the 10 people that want what you have, but like, everybody has different things. Like, I'm on there, I follow people who motivate me for like fitness and for health and for thinking differently. And yeah, it's just, there's so many we're multi-passionate. There's so many um, facets of myself that I want to evolve and grow. And it's not just making money on its own at the expense of everything else. So yeah, you struck a chord there.
Cool. All right. I want to start to bring some of these things together. So we're going to start to talk about branding here, I think, but I want you to answer this question first. If someone resonates as a multi-passionate, but they feel stuck, what do you think they're really looking for? What is the answer that they're looking for in their life?
Permission.
Permission?
Yeah. Permission to be who they are, try that crazy little idea. I can almost tell you 99.99, if not 100% of the clients who come to me and who are so confused. And on the first call, they're like, are you sure this will even work for me? I promise you, I have no idea. Within 2 calls, they're on a roll and they know what they're doing. And it really just is having that permission. And sometimes you need someone to give you that permission. Sometimes you need to give yourself the permission that whatever your idea is, you just try it out. And I think that's where my probably superpower is, and you can probably feel it, just like a calm, let's try it out and see what happens. And then we'll have a chuckle at the end how it went. Like you just have to really down regulate your nervous system. Think of life as fun. Think of work as play. We're not quitting your job tomorrow. That's why I really recommend also starting something as a side hustle. Keep what you're doing, start experimenting on the side. We're not blowing anything up. This is
Yeah.
just a new hobby. Try it out. And I will make a caveat. This is a hobby that we're prioritizing. This isn't a
Right.
hobby that you don't prioritize, right? Like, I
Yeah.
think that's the other thing we need to really change up is that a hobby is just something you find time for. No, you fucking make time for it, right? In the same way that you do for fitness, for going to the gym. Side note. But yeah, it's just permission. You like to do that.
So I love that. And I think that word permission, I use it a lot as well. I think it's totally true. I thought my hypothesis of what you were going to say was they're struggling to find that intersection that they really align with, that
Mm-hmm.
feels like authentic to them. And I think by giving yourself permission to try these things, that is actually how you find that piece. So that was my guess of what you were going to say, but I think it's pretty darn close. Um,
The one thing
so
I'll add
go
to
ahead.
that is I think the having the mindset of you are the niche is incredibly helpful because
Yeah.
if I am into these five things, then that means there's somebody who's into these five things. There is a reason why somehow my intuition, my brain, my curiosity, my growth track, my skill stacking led me to like these five things, right? It's like trusting your own preferences to guide you. And so that's why if you just give permission to yourself to look at what you've done, you'll see that the intersection is already there. You just aren't
Yeah.
seeing it because there's so much like shame clouding it, you know?
Yeah. And this is
Yeah.
exactly where branding comes in. And I just, before we get going on it, I want to just say one thing. Like, we live in a time that is unlike any other in that we have infinite leverage to be ourselves and to make money from essentially being ourself. And Naval Ravikant says it all the time. He's like, you need to specialize in being yourself because no one can compete with you about being yourself. So even if you think you are in one of those containers, let's just use insurance consultant. I want to work on my own and I'm an insurance consultant and that's what I think I am. You stand out and you cut through to a certain percentage of people that want your services because you can be uniquely you and no one can compete with you in that way. And by articulating that in brand form and learning how to use it, which Sigute is going to completely educate us on, that is your opportunity. And it's a massive renaissance. I call it the self-directed renaissance of people taking control, becoming themselves, building their own businesses, and finding freedom and success and happiness through doing it. So I will get off my soapbox. Talk to us about that concept and like what are the core elements of branding, personal branding that we need to understand. What moves the
Mm.
needle in this area?
Well, I love that you brought up Naval because another great legend. But another thing that he also says is that, the if you look back 50, 100 years ago, the levers that you could pull was being born into money, being born into the right family. And he said the most recent, most powerful lever that we have and leverage that we can use is your brand,
Yep,
right? Think
absolutely.
about it. That's where you 10x and go unlimited on whatever opportunity you have. So it's like for anybody who wasn't born into the right quote unquote network, who wasn't born with unlimited funds to throw at their ideas, like you have your brand that you can build. Enough said, right? Like just complete amazing opportunity. Now your question was what is important for folks to sort of think
Yeah,
about, to incorporate. I think
we
something
hear
to
we hear we hear personal brand, right?
yeah.
What does that mean for us multi-potentialites? Like, I'm learning to pick up some things. I'm trying to create a brand and those types of things, but I want to know from your brain what moves the needle and what do I need to care about and be doing?
Yeah. So I was going to say specifically for, we're in 2025, where marketing is right now, it's very identity based. So just think identity based. What does that mean? It's exactly what you said is I don't care to learn about business from just anybody. I want to learn it from Michael, right? He lives the life that I want to live. He embodies the values that I care about. He has, fuck it, I'm going solo on his shirt. I resonate with that. It's your vibe, it's your values, it's your standards for life. If I'm following you, I know that what you're teaching me has already been filtered through those values and standards and vibe. So I know that if those are the things that I resonate with you, they're gonna pass the bar for that, right? For me, in the way that I teach branding and building a portfolio career and all of that, it's going to be filtered through my obsession of, well, A, being multi-passionate, right? So this is going to be resilience proof you, no matter
Hmm.
how your career is going to go. It's going to provide you freedom. That's a huge value of mine. The freedom to grow, reinvent, also physical freedom, financial freedom, time. Like I'm not building something where I'm going to be stuck in a location, right? Like even just that for me is important. So thinking of yourself as an identity is going to be the game changer because nobody cares to learn something from a random person anymore. Because I always say the market is more sophisticated to know now that there isn't just one way to do something. And so if there's more than one way, shoot, I'm overwhelmed, so many options. What's my shortcut? Find somebody who wants to live the same life, who wants to have the same values. I know that they're like a boutique store that carries all of your favorite products. And when they get a new product, you just know it's going to be up your alley because you trust their taste. And so I would say that's probably the one thing I would really, really push to focus on.
Yeah, so identity, I think wrapped in that is the idea of authenticity. Like it's got to feel good to you too. It's got to feel like you are unwrapping a part of yourself that you do want the world to see. I mean, this took me a lot to get through. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but like I'm actually pretty introverted and I wasn't really ready to kind of be the face, but if I did it my way and I was able to feel good doing it and it felt completely aligned and authentic, then that helps me continue to do it. And am I rough around the edges a little bit sometimes? Yeah, and all of that. But I think that really helps, and that just helps us confidence wise too. Just feel like okay, I'm an individual, even if I'm in my role in my job. Like I'm still an individual with a unique point of view that people are resonating with and getting value from. Like that to me, that was a big part of it.
Yeah, which I'm now going to guess you probably follow Chris Do and love his work.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Right? Like
Yeah.
that's so much of his brand. What is it? He's
Uh,
oh gosh, what is it? The loud introvert? It's something like that.
yeah, I think
It's
that's
right.
right.
I think I nailed it.
Yeah.
And we resonate with him because there's layers beyond introversion. Introvert doesn't mean you're in your basement, rocking yourself back and forth at night. It just means you're somebody who really listens, observes the world. You're probably sensitive to things around you. You notice things that others don't, which means that you probably find the loud version of business really like confronting to your senses. I remember, again, when James Clear first started his website, this was again like a decade ago. Somehow I stumbled into it like the first few months of him writing his blog. And I just remember opening it up and at the time, remember, it was like crazy ads, like banners, ads, pop-ups, like everything. Like websites were just ugly. And
Yeah.
he was the first one where he just had a white page and his blog post on it. And I just remember reading it going, this feels so good to read.
Yeah.
And this feels so good to me. And I remember it 10 years later, that feeling of reading his blog. And it gave me permission just from seeing how he operates to go, if I ever do a website, it's going to be clean, beautiful. Like I have never had a pop up on my website because just they're too much for me. Like
Yeah.
I really don't like the pop ups, and so I don't do that. And so just being who we are and showing up in that way, giving people the experience, it also gives them permission to be like, yeah, you can be an introvert and have a brand. I'm an introvert. I have a brand. Do you think I want to be like Tony Robbins? No, but also I'm building a certain muscle the more I show up. Like
Right.
even being here, this would have terrified me a few years ago. But I've built the muscle having done this a few times. And so I always say, like, I have not converted to the extrovert world. Like, I'm like pure introvert. I'm gonna go curl up and read a book after this. But I just want to show that like different parts of us can light up. And especially for introverts, it's when you're passionate about something, you come alive and you actually don't shut up. So I probably should shut up now. I've been talking a lot, but that's who an introvert is, right? And so just like redefining different identities for people and different labels, I think is a really, really cool thing to do. And you kind of pave the way for others who shared that excuse with you and you broke through it. And now they're free to break through. And that's I think that's what branding is just like unlocking other people's superpowers because you were brave enough to go first.
Yeah. Yeah, I resonate with that. But it's one thing to tell people lean into identity, be authentic, all of that kind of stuff. But I'm thinking specifically about LinkedIn, just the platform right now, and how it is being used and changed. It's one thing to say, okay, I get that, let's do that. It's another to create content or describe your point of view in an about section or a headline. So what are some of your tactics or tips, or again, like what matters, what doesn't, when thinking about that? Because I still, to this day am constantly trying to refine my messaging and not just post something about my kids or, some kind of cringy thing, but like get across that brand and that essence and that point of view.
Yeah. So I have a few answers for you. The first one is going back to that idea of build first, scale later. And so there's phases to it. And so
Yeah.
for somebody who hasn't posted on LinkedIn yet, the advice for that person is very different. For that person, I would say, just like if you're starting a fitness routine, forget about being authentic right now. Just talk about what you are comfortable to talk about on
Mhm.
LinkedIn. And if that's your job, try to make it as fun as you can, as spicy as you can, but just build the muscle of showing up, right? That's the most important thing is that you stay in the game. I don't care, like that's all that matters. The irony is that authenticity is a muscle. It's gonna build really fast. Like I'll start with clients and they're like, okay, I need to make this really just simple and calm. Honestly, 4 posts later, I'm not kidding you, 4 posts later, they're like, all right, here's the truth. Let's go. And I'm like,
Gloves
geez,
off.
yeah. I'm like, wow, we're taking our gloves off already. It's surprising how quickly, how big the fear is before you start, and how quickly just you smash it away. And then you're like, no, I want to add a little bit more spice. So I would say at the beginning, just learn to just show up, learn to post, see what feels good. I always say, like, really learn the formulas and everything, just because we don't like to do things if we're not getting some sort of recognition or validation that it's working, even for ourselves. So just I would focus there first. Now, for the person who's been posting and who is now ready to go, okay, gloves are off. I don't know what that looks like. I think the core exercise that I go back to for myself and for my clients is you have to have the before and after of your client. So I call that your struggling avatar and your successful avatar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who's the struggling version of them? Probably you, let's call it 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the successful version, something that the transformation that you are able to create or you've gone through, whatever that looks like. And I, I swear to you, every morning I think about those two versions when if you're pulling up a story, you're like, oh, that was a cool thing that happened. You go, okay, I'm sitting with this person. Why do they care about this?
Mm-hmm.
And I would almost challenge anyone, and I would even challenge myself. You could probably come up with any topic, and I could find a way to spin it to make sense for my
Yeah.
audience. So it's never the topic, it's how do you spin it to make it relevant to them. And I'm sure if you are recommending a TV show and you have 5 different friends, and I said, like, this is your homework, recommend this one show to 5 different friends and get them all to watch it. To this one, you're going to say, oh my God, this was like, won a prize, this won an Oscar, you have to listen to it. For that movie nerd, that's going to hit for them. The other one will be like, oh my God, our favorite actor or actress is in it, you have to watch it. You're going to find different ways of selling it to them. And so always have those two. I'm curious, when I say that, do you have a clear image even for yourself? Do you find that you have that struggling, successful avatar?
For me personally,
Yeah.
I do. I think what shifts, I mean, the avatar, to be quick, is me 5 or 10 years ago, corporate executive, stuck, kids wondering how to put their best talents to work, how to get the things that they want out of life, soul sucking job that's taking a lot of time, energy from away from kids, that type of thing. And yeah, the heaven piece or the success piece is someone who wants to, be working from home, be location independent, own a business, but not make it feel like a business. Not think about having a massive team or capital, but being able to control their time and effort, making good money. Money's a part of it for sure. Being able to pick their kids up from school when problems happen. I mean, that's me. What I feel like right now. So, I feel like I do have that. I think where I get self-conscious or I guess spinning is that the right group or not? And because there's an edge to me, like I wasn't the buttoned up corporate exec guy. Like I didn't play by the rules. I was more that like corporate misfit, struggling to find my way in the world and where I fit in. And I sometimes wonder, like, what does my messaging look like there? And should I be adapting some of that? But, we don't have to answer that, but like,
Yeah.
that's kind of, I start to think about, okay, is the avatar correct?
Well, I think a lot of folks actually probably do think that, right? That's probably something that we question everything. Like you ordered chocolate ice cream and you're like, damn, should I have ordered vanilla?
Yeah,
We have that in us. Results speak. That's the only thing.
true.
Like I always say, the most important thing is block out everything you've ever heard. You're just focusing on this group and you're going, am I attracting them? Are they coming in? So, right. So if you, let's, for example, say you have a coaching or consulting business and you've attracted 5 people who are totally off, then you go, okay, this messaging is attracting this type of person that I don't want. What is it about my message and these people that's connecting them? Okay, stop doing that. Now, what's interesting? What would resonate with these people? Okay, now I'm going to go anti that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
Anti.
I'm attracting a lot of like aggressive hustle, money people. Okay, so maybe I'm attracting a bit of scarcity. How
Mm-hmm.
do I flip that? How do I now attract abundance? Right?
Mm-hmm.
How do I through the stories or the metaphors that I use in my posts, through the photos, through the examples that I use, how can I plant in more like abundance minded vibes? Right? So that would be
Yeah.
kind of one way to do it, is just looking at who you're attracting. And then once you've kind of nailed it, where you're like, okay, people are trickling in, this is good. Now you really just study your people, just nobody else, and just go, okay, what's your weirdo freak flag? What's mine? Let's just turn up the volume. And then you get less self-conscious about it. Like for me, I attract the bougie, right? I was always kind of like, you're not allowed to talk about how you like money or nice things or that you drink champagne. And then like that would be the thing that people would resonate for me. And I'm like, oh, we're turning the volume on. We're having champagne parties. We're like living the bougie life. And then people are like, oh, thank you for saying that. Like, I love flying first class and doing these things. I'm like, yeah, let's freaking go for it. Let's talk about it. Right. So just like seeing what resonates with your audience and doing more or less of that.
Love that. It comes down to experimentation and figuring out how to ask yourself the right questions
Yeah.
about what results you're getting. It makes complete sense, and never being locked in or afraid to change or experiment through content and otherwise.
And I think I'll
Go ahead.
say I have the luxury of having worked with a lot of like 7, 8 figure entrepreneurs, thought leaders, like you would know their books. And we would talk about their content and they would go, ah, okay. Like, but do you think we should, like, there's always that little, like, they know them deeply and intimately, but they're like, okay, but I kind of want to start talking about this a little bit. And it's just, I'm like, okay, it's just a process. We just like plant little seeds. And so just to always know that there's no, again, it's the arriving. It's like, ooh, I hit 60, I'm retiring, and now I'm just gonna, life is gonna be beautiful and perfect. We have this sort of like finale that we crave, and in brand, there's no finale that you should be ever chasing. So just if you can kind of think of it as like a wave that you're riding, that's what it is. So it's like I always say you have to get comfortable with feeling like crap every day. That's how you're gonna be authentic. Because if you're not feeling like crap, that means you're not being vulnerable enough. You're not pushing yourself. So, um, advice I should probably keep secret and not tell people so it doesn't intimidate them. But I'm like, that's what growth
It's the way
is,
it
right?
is. It's the way it
That's
is.
how it is.
All right, I've got a few like just sort of rapid fire wrap up questions. The first one is going to put you on the spot a little bit. Lean into it. I know you can. But the first question is, you talked about bougie. I look at your content and I look at everything. Everything is so, buttoned up. It's very well done. The images, I can totally see all of that. And I think about me, and I'm like, scruffy beard. I'm always wearing the hat. I wear t-shirts and Crocs everywhere. I wear shorts, 365 days a year. And so my question to you is, if you could, in like 3 bullet points, you know me a little bit, you know my content a little bit. Do you have 3, 1 to 3 pieces of advice on branding that you're like, I look at Mike and I look at his avatar and everything, that you'd be like, these are low hanging fruit?
Mm. Oh my God, I love it. Well, I think the look is good, right? One of my favorite podcasters is Chris Williamson. I'm sure you
Yeah.
follow Modern
Yeah.
Wisdom, right? He's got the socks and the Crocs going. I'm like, I dig that. Like we all like different varieties. I think that speaks to your kind of corporate misfit. I think I would really definitely lean into that. Because the other thing is there's so many flavors of corporate. Not everybody had the buttoned up, whatever. We have to realize there's like a
Right.
hundred different corporate experiences people have. So I would lean into that. I'll have to like dig into your stuff more. You're putting me on the spot.
All right. I'll take that one, and I'll take it as a follow up, maybe 1 or 2 more bullet points that maybe I can share out with people. Here's how
Yes.
Sigute took me to task on my personal brand. All right. Sounds good. I'll let you off the hook. All right. Who are some of the most influential people in your life that the audience should know, follow, etc.? We've talked about a lot of them, but is there anybody else?
Oh, this is good. For me, it moves in seasons, right? Wherever
Yeah.
I'm in life, that's where it's important. Right now, Mel Robbins, her book, Let Them,
Love
has
her.
been incredible. And I think it's really actually helpful to anybody who wants to build a brand. You could even watch some of her podcast episodes. It's funny, I never got into her until she released this book, and I'm just obsessed with her message of let them, just like let, let them make fun of you for posting on LinkedIn. Let them judge how you're showing up. Let them let them make fun of it. Like just let them not understand my career path. Let them enjoy corporate and tell me I've made a mistake. Just like let them do whatever they want. And it's such a freeing feeling because I think that's where a lot of, let them think you're all over the place. Who the hell cares? So I just found
Right.
that like my holy grail. So I would just say do that. And I'm gonna stick to that one. That's a pretty good one.
Okay. Yeah. We have a few other people that you mentioned, and we'll have all that stuff in the show notes and stuff. So that's great. All right. What are you reading right now besides that book, or what topic is like front of mind for you at the moment?
Oh, so I've started doing this thing where in my notes app, I'll put in all my books and I just do a little check mark for it. So I could tell you, so Let Them was one of them. I actually read No More Mr. Nice Guy,
Hmm.
which is curated for men, but it was just an
Yeah.
interesting, like people pleasing, but from the lens of for men, which I find I sometimes learn better when it's completely disassociated from me. So I
Yeah.
can, instead of like, oh, like I have my guard up, I could just be
Yeah.
like, oh no, this is for men. Okay, let me hear what they're telling men. And then you go, oh shit, okay, I kind of do that too. So that was one. I re-listened to The Dip by Seth Godin,
Okay. Yeah.
which
Good
is like
one.
an hour long book, quick one. Simple Abundance, which is a beautiful book from 1990, I think. Um, just really enjoying the simple abundance, the process of life, the enjoyment of life, which I found really interesting. There's Can I go on a tangent? Do we have time? Is this hot takes or tangent hour? This is
No,
tangent time?
you
Okay.
get to go. Yeah.
Okay, I love it.
This is why we put swag time
That's
for all the
right.
tangents that Sigute wants to go off.
Whoever's here is they're the tangent lovers. So it's funny, there's a chapter in Simple Abundance talking about, it's geared towards women, but like homemaking and having fresh flowers in the house and all this stuff that it's so interesting we look at as like fluff and time wasters and these things of like, ugh, why would you be a homemaker as a woman, all these things. And then it kind of clicked for me what like the biohacking tech bros are doing, which is they're setting up their environment to get
Yeah.
into the right state, man. And I'm like, geez, like women have been creating homes out of houses, creating the energy for safety, for comfort, for like regulating your nervous system when you light a candle. Like we've just been doing this for so long. And then your favorite words, efficiency and productivity, all of it wiped that out because we're like,
Yeah.
well, that's not efficient. That Why would you light a candle when you could just, drink a smoothie and go on with your day? And
Yeah.
we're kind of returning to this reality of, oh, we can actually manage our state. We can actually manage our energy. If I want to ground myself after a stressful day, I can put these different things into place into my home office, into my home, and like self-soothe and regulate myself. Or if I have something big to do, I can like, I don't know, put on some comedy or some strong music, or I can go into a different part of the room that's brightly lit. It was really interesting to me how I think, especially this, I'm speaking purely to women here, but a lot of the things that maybe you've felt stereotyped over, or insecure about, it's actually like just go like trust with it. It makes
Hmm.
sense. Like if you intuitively are doing it, and then you don't need a tech bro being like, "Oh, you can change your state," to validate something that
Yeah.
maybe your mom and your grandmother was already doing. So that's why I love books from like 20, 30 years ago, because you're
Yeah.
like, and even beyond, because you're like, there's so much wisdom that we just, I don't know. If it's wisdom from our parents, we're like, outdated, like we know better. And then you grow up and you're like, damn it, like why didn't I just listen to that cliche?
Right.
We never do.
They're right about some things. My
I
gosh.
know, my
Yeah.
God.
All right. Very cool tangent. Loved it. Last question. Just let us all know where people can find more about you and the work you do. Obviously, LinkedIn. So
Yeah.
we're all on LinkedIn at the moment. Follow Sigute if you don't. Say hi to me if you'd like. If you don't like, that's fine. We'll let you be. But Sigute is the master here. So go follow her. And where else can we find out more about you, your content, what you do, all of the good stuff?
Yes, go on LinkedIn. You'll find my website again, sigutezitikyte.com. You can find that there. You can also order my book on Amazon, and it's Amazon wherever, Canada, US, Europe, all the different places. You've got your handy copy there. It's a small book, micro chapters. Again, I wrote it as something to, every day you can flip through, kind of reground yourself into your multi-passionate superpowers, and keep going from there. So I would love to connect with anyone in all those places.
The book's great. I do. I'm going to angle for an autograph copy at some point here.
100%.
But it's fantastic. It's a great quick read. Something that's easily revisited time and time again. So pick it up. Sigute, thank you so much for being here. This has been awesome. I look so forward to continuing to follow all of your content and all of your progress. And wish you all the best.
Amazing. I love it. You're the perfect host. So this was so fun for me.
Thank you. Take care, everybody. We'll see you soon. Okay. All right. Broadcast ended. All right.
Nice. Well, that was fun.
Cool. I'm glad you had fun.
I did.
Yeah. Just wanted to check in quick if you have a couple minutes just to see, like, yeah, how everything went.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll
you
have to
know,
give you, I have homework. I'm gonna have to
you
go
do have
and review
homework.
and give you some tips. I'd be honored. I'd be happy to, but no, it's so fun. I love what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah.
So
We,
fun.
we have, we have so much alignment. I love talking to people where we align on things, but we are so different. Like you're speaking to women and you're all like put together, and I like roll out of bed with my shorts on, and
That's how it's
but
gotta be.
at the end of the day, we're talking about the same stuff, and we get jacked about the same stuff. So that's why I love doing this. So
Yeah, that's my favorite part. And there's so many ways that it can look and feel and
yeah,
right, I told you it's the identity piece. It's like the vibes of the people. Like that's what
yeah,
matters
yeah,
in branding now, which is an exciting topic. But I love that, man, the throwbacks to all the people that we grew up listening to and reading. So it all makes sense.
yeah. Well, very cool. I really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for doing this. If I can ever be a help to you in anything, please, don't hesitate to reach out. You know how to find me, and I look forward to hanging out in the comments
Yeah.
of all of your content. So
For
thanks so
sure.
much.
And let me know when I
Oh yeah.
didn't do any promotion ahead of time for this. I actually, to be honest, thought it was a podcast, so I didn't even think to write any posts.
No worries.
But I'll get you on the YouTube when it's out.
Okay.
I'll do some posts around that. So
Yeah, we'll have it's probably going to be next week sometime, or maybe the following Monday it'll go out. And then we'll have some like chopped up clips too that we can send to you. Use whatever you
oh nice.
want, and
Perfect.
but just Descript's pretty easy to do some of that stuff. So we'll send all that stuff to you and let you know when it comes out.
Nice. Yeah, your life probably got easier with AI. All the
Oh yeah.
like editing, cropping, everything. It's amazing. I'm like, do I need to start like a YouTube channel if I can do it in like here, assistant, edit it for me.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty cool. And Riverside does a lot of like it records the video individually, so like I can do clips with just you if you're talking and just me if
Mm,
I'm talking, and that's kind of nice. So
I love that.
yeah,
Very cool. Well, I'll have to pick your brain if I'm ready to step into the world of podcasting and YouTubing and all that.
for sure. Would love to help. Yeah.
Cool. And what kind of, just so I know, who do you work with? What do you offer specifically? I always like to refer people, have it all top
Oh
of mind.
yeah. So I work primarily with 45 to 55-year-old men, typically, that are senior corporate professionals. And my offer is really, I help you break corporate dependence, that feeling of corporate dependence, and build a self-directed business. So, main outcomes: create time and space at work. If you know Matt Doan, I mean, we're buddies. Like, it's very similar to what Matt does.
Right, right, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
So
I saw you at one of his events that he ran.
yeah, yeah,
There you
we're
go.
good buddies, and you know, he's better at it than I am probably, but like anyway, yeah, create time and space at
Nice.
work, build that future vision, and then do all of the figure out that vehicle. I call it the self-directed
Mm,
vehicle, and do all the business building, soup to nuts. So yeah,
nice. So it's kind of like the systems, it's like create a schedule and system in your day to be able to create time to now start
yeah,
building the
that's the
business.
first thing, because most people come to me burned out, completely overworked, and they tell me there's no possible way I can get any
Mm,
time back. And I say, you're wrong. I was in the Wall Street Journal at the end of like October 2023 in an article about just leave me alone so I can work with all my tips and tricks on how I used to do it back in the day when I was in corporate
right.
to get the hell out of out of there so I could work on my future. And I'm actually writing a book on it right now as well. The working title is Just Leave Me Alone So I Can Work, Corporate Misfits Guide to Time Sovereignty in the Age of Distraction. And it's
Oh
all
my
about,
God, mic drop. Nailed it. I love that.
thank you. Yeah. So it's all about, yeah, how to tactically
Yeah.
reclaim time and energy from work so that you have space to invest in actually thinking about
Yeah.
building the future that you want.
Ah, so good. So good.
Yeah.
So good. I love it. I'm like
Thank you.
soaking it all in. No, I think that's really good. I think the tactical, tangible, the systems of it is a really good piece of it, right? It's not just like, oh, figure it out on your lunch
Yeah.
break. It's like, no, no, here's how we actually do it.
Say no more.
Say no
It's
more.
like
Yeah.
everybody's scared to do that. So we show them how to do it,
There you go.
and make it a win-win for the
Yeah.
company too. So
Yeah. Cool.
yeah,
Well, I'm excited for you. That's awesome.
thank you. All right, let's keep in touch. We'll let
Yeah.
you know when everything's out, and I really appreciate you. I love having this
Yeah.
connection now, and yeah, look forward to continuing our collisions in the future.
I love collisions. Yeah. Thanks so much, Mike.
All right, take care.
See you later. Bye.